I forgot to say earlier, and I'm sure that every member of the jury would agree with this, that in awarding the prize for the local freelance to Maqbool, we had to think very carefully about somebody who twice running has been a shortlist nominated runner-up, in effect, Reggie Joseph, a journalist who works in southwestern India and wrote some very moving pieces about the Devidasis, the young women who are, I speak with care here because there are people who know a lot more about this than I do, but in any event, young women who are forced into lives of prostration or prostitution in some Hindu temples in that part of the world. And it's a pity there was only one prize to give, because Reggie Joseph is a wonderful writer and facing all the same kinds of problems that other freelancers do, did a terrific job. I think it's worth saying also that one of the difficulties for foreign, say to people who do not write in English, as applicants for these awards, is that they have to have their work translated. That's an expensive, time-consuming and difficult thing to accomplish. And we felt, as a jury, that if Reggie, and it wasn't the only one, if Reggie had been able to get perhaps a truer translation of his work, it might have pushed him across the finish line. We might have had two awardees. I don't know whether he could have found the money in that category as well. But I think it's important to say that he's got close to the finishing line on two occasions, and we hope that he doesn't give up. Which leaves us, I think, Vanessa, with the third awardee. Near Rosen first crossed my radar screen in the first year of the occupation of Iraq. I was the New York Times bureau chief, and we heard this improbable story, so improbable that at first I was inclined to dismiss it as sheer nonsense, of an American who had embedded himself not with the 82nd Airborne Division outside Fallujah, but with the principal Al-Qaeda-linked imam of Fallujah in the mosque in the heart of the city. And I thought, what kind of lunatic of the parish can this be? Well, I understood better tonight because I've never actually seen Nir until I met him this evening. And I can see, you'll forgive me because I'm only an infrequent visitor to the barber myself, that he has certain advantages over the rest of us, or at least over the rest of you, when it comes to assuming a role of that kind. He makes a credible believer of the true faith. I think you've trimmed the beard a little bit. He did the most extraordinary thing. As I recall, this embed with the enemy of the day occurred about the time of Fallujah 1. Fallujah 1 being the first Marine-led attempt to recover control of Fallujah. You'll recall there was a second one later in 2004 in which the city was virtually flattened. At the time, there was a fatwa, correct me if I'm wrong here, death to all foreign correspondents. I had to awkwardly forbid our correspondents to even attempt to go into Fallujah. And it was at this point that we heard that this lunatic was, and it wasn't make-believe, it was real. And he wrote an extraordinary account of it. So I knew we were dealing with somebody who was quite out of the ordinary. Nir won the award that we're giving tonight for some extraordinary reporting on another venture into enemy territory. Published in Rolling Stone, an account of a trip into the heart of Taliban country, south and southwest of Kabul. Am I right? You cannot read it without catching your breath. It was a venture of the most extraordinary bravery, which I think you could say very nearly ended very badly. But he came back with an extraordinary account, which you can read today, more than a year later, and there's nothing that sits on President Obama's desk today in terms of making the decisions he has to make that is not set out in Near's reporting. It's really the most remarkable piece of journalism, and I think will stand for all time as one of the great pieces to come out of this war. Near's performance interests me for another reason, which is that having at the New York Times recently gone through a very unhappy, miserable incident in which we lost one of our Afghan employees, we, of course, look again at the whole question of risk-taking and how you limit those risks, how we could limit those risks. In the end, it's an impossible conundrum. It's something where you rely, of course, on good judgment when correspondents venture into enemy territory, but you also rely on good luck and the grace of God. Near has extraordinary courage. I think that he has also enjoyed the grace of God. And I think we would all hope that before he makes his next venture into enemy territory, he hasn't told me where that would be, but perhaps somewhere in eastern Yemen maybe, or I'm sure there is one, that he will think twice. But if he doesn't, we'll hear from him. He's a remarkable reporter. It was impossible to choose between Near and Manon. I'm so delighted that Sabina and those who patronize the fund were able to make a double award this year. It's thoroughly deserved, and if you'd like to come up and accept your award, I'd be.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm grateful to IPPR, the jury, the Kurt Schork Foundation and family, Thomson Reuters. I knew very little about Kurt Schork until John described his life and his motivations, and it's made me think whether I would live up to that standard and how I can better do that. I'm also honored to accept the award with Manon, who's much more fearless than I am. There's no courage. I'm constantly scared. I'm scared now. And as a freelancer, you live a very lonely life, so being recognized by your peers is especially meaningful. And you live, of course, a very desperate life in terms of hoping for that next contract. And I think it's probably easier for an American than it is even for a French woman, because we at least have more outlets and more magazines, more newspapers. But even those are shutting down and firing journalists, losing staff, less likely to take risks financially, which pushes us to take more and more risks of our own to make sure that we can get a story. So this award is especially meaningful as a freelancer in these difficult times when the fate of our careers are really in jeopardy. So I appreciate it. Thank you.